So I've been playing Pokemon Legends ZA since Monday, and the original plan was to make one big, expansive covering review video. But as I did my first playthrough of the game and then saw it released to the wider community on Wednesday, there has been a growing feeling and set of thoughts inside of me that I just can't put off waiting to talk about this in like a month. Over the last few days, I have been seeing an overwhelming amount of negativity towards this game, and I think it is broadly misinformed. Now, for context, if you don't know who I am, you might have a gut response to what I just said. Like, oh, SmithPlays Pokemon YouTube channel. This is clearly a Nintendo shill who's here to just spread blind optimism. And that's probably as far from the truth as you could get, because I have spent almost this entire channel growing an audience looking at Pokemon from an extremely critical lens. I have gone so far as to make my own ROM hacks fixing the things I don't like in old Pokemon games, which has even probably got me blacklisted by Nintendo. So no, I am not a Nintendo shill. Nintendo did not send me an early copy nor a free Switch 2. When Pokemon Sword and Shield first dropped, I indulged in the broad spread hatred that that game received. The animations were bad, the wild zones were kind of disappointing, and overall, yeah, it felt like a disappointment for what we were expecting on the Switch. And I actually think that in a big way, that game's release has led to where we are today. Up until the end of Generation 7, Pokemon could always lean back on the fact that it was handheld. Sure, let's go, whatever. But for the most part, it was like, yeah, of course these aren't gonna be the best quality games. They're on the DS, right? And when Sword and Shield dropped on the Switch, that one giant floodgate holding back this wave of criticism finally was released. And I think it's made hating Pokemon much more popular in the Switch era. And I think because it's become such a popular norm, people have kind of turned off their ability to critically think, and it just feels like a lot of rehashing on old ground. But that said, it's certainly not a perfect game, and I definitely understand people having frustrations with specifically Nintendo's practices, but I also think there is room to separate Nintendo from the gameplay experience itself. And I want to go through those specific criticisms. The first, and this is certainly coming from the Sword and Shield era, are graphics. Now, when people say graphics, they actually mean two things. They mean visually how it looks, but the other thing that often incorporates is performance. Visually, I am someone who is very happy to go back and play Pokemon Blue on my Game Boy Color, so I have never really played Pokemon for the graphics. That is, however, very subjective, and if you are unhappy with how this game looks, I think you have every right to feel that way. Performance-wise, I had an early copy on Switch 1, and yeah, it's not great. I find it to be a tricky argument, though. Is this Pokemon's fault? Is this Game Freak's fault? Or is it just kind of tough to make games with Xbox 360 like hardware in 2025? On the other side, though, yeah, it sucks to have to buy a new console just to play a game in its optimized setting. So I'm not gonna fight you there either, but the one thing I need to say is like, this game is running really good on the Switch 2. The misinformation is fooling a lot of people who haven't played it yet, and they're seeing some random screenshot of someone playing on their Switch 1 in handheld mode and the worst possible framing, and that's just not representative of what this game is capable of. If you don't want to pay $600 to play this game optimally, yeah, you're justified, but it's really disingenuous towards Game Freak to say that the game doesn't run well. Now, one of the other major talking points going into the release of this game was that it would all be taking place in Lumio City. This is kind of the second Legends game, right? The first one was Pokemon Legends Arceus, and it took place across Sinnoh, kind of. And before even playing it, people were saying, well, it's only gonna be in one city. That's stupid, it's bad. So I think one idea that's really important to understand about game design is that big isn't always good. I mean, look at Starfield. It's infinite and broad, but very shallow. Pokemon Legends Arceus captivated a very tailored atmosphere with its width, but it was completely lacking in depth, whereas Lumio City actually does a pretty good job of this. There's this like 40 law or something where like in a game, you should always have something to do within 40 seconds of movement for the player. And yeah, I guess in Legends Arceus, you could catch your 80th Bidoof But in Lumio City, like it actually feels like there's always something going on. On top of the wild Pokemon zones, you have other Pokemon all over the city, and you're often running into these higher leveled Pokemon or even alphas, and it just feels tighter. And I guess you could say, well, it's just one city, it feels the same. I don't know. I care more about what I'm doing in the space. Over my 30 to 40 hours of gameplay, I'm having a more fun time doing all kinds of different things in a place that is relatively all the same, more so than like doing the same thing in different places. People also saying like the city is lazy, you can't go into buildings. Yeah, I do kind of agree with that one. I don't think this needs to be GTA where you can go into people's apartments. You gotta ask yourself, like from a game design perspective, what does that add to Pokemon? The answer is not very much. But you can't go in the shops. And you could even do that in X and Y. That is a classic like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of Pokemon thing that this company is known and justifiably criticized for. I've also been seeing people saying the music is bad. I'm sorry, in what world? Even within the incredibly high standard that Pokemon has set for its soundtracks, this is above average. Oh my, dude, it's great. The music is top tier. There's also been a lot of complaints about the story, and this is specifically one I think people are saying not having finished the game. This is one of the better written Pokemon games. The game starts slow and takes time to flesh out its characters, but this builds a foundation from which the rest of the story then sits much better upon. The game takes some time to familiarize yourself with the city before any major storyline moments take place. And I will also say, if you're not that far into it yet, a lot of times the game will make decisions where you're like, oh, that's classic Pokemon, or that's really cringe even. And then later does something that recontextualizes it, and you're like, oh, okay, GG Game Freak, that was clean. Also, people saying it's really easy. I agree with that. I do think that this game plays on the easier side. However, because of the pacing, it's much faster gameplay, it doesn't feel bad. I might change my mind as I go through this a few more times, but stomping like junior trainers with my Mega Feraligatr feels a whole lot better than when you're in just that one turn based combat system. I also think that this is mostly coming from people who haven't played a lot of the game, because I actually have found the difficulty to scale really well. And while, yeah, even like the rogue mega fights aren't super hard, they feel like a serious obstacle. There's also been a lot of complaints about a small dex. You know, ever since Dexit, this has always been a talking point. I get it. And I will say that in a game like Scarlet and Violet or PLA, where you are going for wide, not deep, that is the correct decision. But you probably want to think of this game as more as like the older Pokemon games, where you don't have this wide scaling area, so you want to keep your decks fairly tight. We did an hour video talking about X and Y. This is one of the biggest problems in X and Y, and I actually think that they did a really good job in keeping the decks pretty narrow. And I can only speak for myself, but I am very happy with the overall dex choices. And then I think the other like big overall complaint is like, well, this other video game does X and Y better. Yes. Again, it's like, it's Pokemon, you know? There's RPGs that do the real-time combat system better. There are games with better graphics. There are games like GTA that's more than a city, and you can go in people's apartments. And I think those are all valid criticisms. And you as a fan deserve the right to criticize a game that you want to see be the absolute best it can be. And I don't want to refute those ideas, because I think there is positivity to be had from said complaints. But listen, I'm a very long time Pokemon fan, and when I pick up a game, my number one thing that I am concerned about is just having fun. And I'm just feeling like a lot of this criticism is momentum, because hating Pokemon and hating Game Freak has become the norm. Like, yes, you can stare at a brick 2 feet away from you and complain that it doesn't look good enough, or you can just play the game and experience it. And I don't know, man, like, I'm loving it. It's just been a really good time. And I dare I say, like, actually, no. This has been the most fun Pokemon experience I have had on the Switch. I don't know if it's objectively the best game, and right now I don't care, because I'm just having fun with a franchise that is frankly very nostalgic to me. There's just so much that makes this game a good experience. The pacing is particularly dialed in, where I always feel like I'm doing something different. You've got promotion battles, rogue megas, storyline beats, and then there's always constantly new wild areas opening up. One particular thing that I actually think was quite justified is in gameplay, a lot of people were saying like the wild zones look clunky, right? You compare this big, broad area in PLA to this and it's like, yeah. And I think when you first go into this game, it's going to feel clunky. Going into my first playthrough, I didn't like it. It was like, I'm in this big city and there's just these like little tiny areas to catch Pokemon. I think that's something else that requires more playthrough to appreciate. It's actually tied into the story quite well, where there's like a faction that doesn't like all these zones popping up and saying like, dude, this is stupid. Like, this is a city. Why do we have wild like hippos and stuff? So its obvious criticism is wrapped up into the story. And what's cool is as the game progresses, you start finding more and more wild zones popping up that are kind of like taking over the city. And I found it progressively enchanting. One of my favorites is I think Zone 12, that you first go there to fight a rogue mega and it's just this river, but then you come back to it to see that it's been completely taken over by ice type Pokemon. I get it if you don't like it at the start, but give it some time and I think it will grow on you. Also, can we talk about megas? I don't know, man. This one just bothers me. Like, people are so goddamn serious and it's like, you can't have any whimsy in your life. If anything is trying to be unserious, it's like you have to criticize it. Do I think that Mega Feraligatr with his jaw up looks like him in a toilet? Yes, and I wish that head was down for a lot longer. But when that head is down, I'm like, okay, I get it. That's really silly. Or like the fact that Mega Meganium not only gets its really silly flowers, but like disco jeans. Listen, man, it's Pokemon. I like whimsy. But at the same time, some of the serious Megas are so clean. Look, I can't find a collage of just base and non-shinies, but like, dude, come on. Electros, Mega Skirmir is normally gold, but both are so cool. The aura of Mega Barbaricle, Mega Frostlass. Dude, I never liked Drampa, and now I like Drampa. I like Mega Malamar. I love Mega Holucha. Mega Emboar might be the best Mega starter form of all time. Mega Chandelure, Mega Dragalge, dude, Mega Excadrill. And then you've got Starmie, which is the most horrifying design I have ever seen, and I hate it. And yet I can't help but feel like they achieved exactly what they wanted with that. The battle system is snappy. The rogue mega fights are so much better than the noble fights in PLA. Character customization is probably the best it's ever been. Now, I do have a lot of personal criticisms with this game, and it's a lot of more under the hood stuff that I don't feel like, it's not what this video is trying to be. We're gonna do that big in-depth video, but I just kind of reached a boiling point today. I'm seeing a lot of people who haven't played the game yet, consuming content from other people online, framing it in a disingenuous way, and I don't really like that. There's people making very compelling and genuine criticisms of this game. But I just felt like with my sort of space on the internet, with what I do with Pokemon, I could hopefully be a trusted source to push back against more of that, like, just not critical gut hate response that I'm seeing so much of. It is the most fun I've had for the launch specifically of a Nintendo Switch Pokemon game. My opinions still might change as I play through a few more times, but like I said, I'm someone that's not afraid to be critical, and I'm having a blast. Really liking Pokemon Legends ZA so far. So I'm gonna go get back to making some top 10s, and yeah, see you soon. Bye.